Hello, hello. Welcome to Revolutionize Your Marketing with AI. And I'm here today with Natalie Jackson, who's a fellow Provisor member and marketer. And we are going to talk about what she's doing to help businesses better integrate experiences and listening and building teams, bringing teams, I should say, together. So, welcome, Natalie. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
You're welcome, of course. If you don't mind, for my audience, just telling them a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Of course, yep. So Natalie Jackson, I started up Crescent Consultancy a couple of years ago, focused on bringing end-to-end customer and employee experiences to organizations, all different sizes. And I have learned that very much listening is a huge part of that. And I'm sure we'll get into that today. But my goal is to make the discipline of customer experience or CX completely approachable and something that any organization can kind of start on and start to see improvements right away.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit, like, how did you get into this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I started out in project management and consulting, like early in my career. And through that, I lived through some very large transformations in big global organizations. And I started to piece together those ingredients. And then fast forward, maybe about 7 years ago, I had the aha that, oh, wait, customer experience and employee experience, it's a discipline. There are functions. There's a way to do this. So that I think was my little launch pad to go and start figuring out what I'm interested in and how I want to help organizations do that. So I was able to do that at my last consulting firm, learned a lot, so grateful for that, and got to develop my own perspective on how to bring this forward.
Awesome. I love it. So, yes, we're going to kind of get into the listening gap, as you call it. Maybe before we do jump right in, when you are working with companies, what signals that they need to bring someone like you in?
Yeah, I mean I love that question because like this work, it's so, as I said, it's like accessible and intuitive, but it's complex at the same time, right? But whenever a leader or a team is feeling like there's a little extra friction in one area, it's not working so great. Those who know that somebody like me can kind of drop in and help with that, I get those calls. So recently, well, I guess about last year, and we've carried on since, onboarding is something that surfaced in a customer client survey they put out to assess how engagement's going. So I notice onboarding is a moment when organizations have built up by acquisition and they realize that the cultures are a little bit off and the systems are different and employees are showing up differently, and therefore the customers, clients, patients are feeling something different, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's, and then those who want to grow is another, good moment. We know growing by retention and referrals is a lot less expensive than acquiring new in most cases. So this is a great way to show up consistently across the whole journey. There are many other
Oh,
use cases, but those are, I think, the main ones. It's like something's,
yeah.
we feel a little clunkiness and we're starting to feel the pull from that.
Yeah, yeah. And is this something you think is obvious, or do companies, like, when they feel this pain, they know it, or
Well, I mean, I love that too because I think yes, but that's what I've been exploring is like I feel like there's a different way that we could be talking about this. So, I mean, I feel like if you ask a lot of leaders and teams in any department or organization, do you know of anything that's not working today? Or what are the three things that your customers or clients have been asking for? Like they can
Mhm.
pretty much say, or if your systems are working a certain way, or if you have a CRM, what's not working. They have a backlog, a list of things that they want to improve probably, or they have
Yeah.
projects that they're doing each year. I think I just like to sort of reorganize those things and sort of how do those affect the customer when
Mhm.
you're choosing and prioritizing. Sometimes they're obvious. We're getting a bunch of calls, we're getting a bunch of emails on a topic, right? We feel like we put a product out too soon, or we knew that we brought in too much inventory and now we sent it out because we were so excited with this V2, but it's not working so great. So there are those specific situations for sure.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Great. Well, let's jump into our topic for today.
yeah.
The listening architecture that you've created and how you're helping companies today. I'd love to maybe just first tell us a little bit about that concept and why you're using it to help companies.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the term listening architecture is really a way for leaders to sort of lift above all of the departments and functions and think completely cross-functionally. So we can say we're doing so great here in marketing or we're doing so great in operations, but do we actually know what's happening across everything? And are we listening to the data that we're getting and the insights from that? Are we listening to employees? Are we listening to our customers on a regular basis? Not like we did a survey 6 months ago and now we're finally making changes. But listening, the way that I'll define it is across everything, right? And then from there, what are you doing with what you're hearing? And that's when you can kind of get to the next level. I just think that's missing because we get stuck in the silos that we live in and stuck in the departments that we're in. And we might care very much and be very skilled and know how to do that and do that so well and report that up to executives and the board. But it very rarely is threaded together in a way to be able to make change together.
Yeah. It was interesting to me because I was at an event, like a networking, kind of like a forum style event
Yeah.
last night. And one of the gentlemen was talking about, they've seen a real downtick in their business because they do very high end custom, what would you call it? Like, your TV and sound systems and movie theater rooms and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And, one of the first thoughts, and somebody else said it before me, was like, well, have you tapped into your current customer base? Have you talked to them? Like, what are they doing? And it seems so obvious, but you're right. Like, it was like right in front of him. He's like, oh, yeah, I guess I should, ask them what they're, yeah.
Yes.
I mean, he has a smaller team, but maybe tell us, like, how do you get a team to start listening? How does that really work?
That's the perfect example. It's like, do you know? Yeah. Have you asked? I think that's a great one, right? And I think it depends on the size of the organization. So you say, well, that's a small team. I recently just rolled off of engagement with a single financial advisor who's ready to scale, who has an assistant and a fantastic, very loyal client base. But she realized she didn't have a third party, like somebody who can drop in and do those types of interviews to listen, to then put the systems in place. So it is, I think, a moment to say, what am I comfortable with? What are my goals? What are my pain points? In that particular example, like let's say the small to mid-size business, referrals are so much of it a lot of the time, depending on the offering. So, I mean, I think you teed it up beautifully. I was able to come in and do a whole bunch of interviews and learn, and it validated, in this case, what she already knew. She's showing up really, really well with trust, but perhaps the cultivation of those referrals wasn't there. If somebody gives a referral, let's put a system in place to follow up, to check in, to do this, to see where it leads, to track the metrics. So even that is a really good spot. And then secondly, one of the things that I ask often, even in in a conversation is, well, do you know what your brand promise is? And sometimes, people will say yes, and sometimes will say no, we have a mission. And when I ask about the brand promise, it's what are you promising to consistently deliver to your customers and hopefully your employees? That's usually missing. We can translate that. It can be called like the experiential North Star or other things. The name almost doesn't matter, but what are you promising? And if you know that, and then you can click down and say, well, now that we know kind of how we want to show up, do we understand what our customers are feeling across the whole journey? Do you know what that whole journey is? So it's kind of more conversational up front. And then you can enter into some of those interviews and then get really deep into the work and find those friction points.
Yeah. No, and thanks for clarifying that it could even be a solopreneur or, a two-person team, that it doesn't have to be a large team.
No, anyone can do this work. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, besides kind of the obvious, so, sometimes it's hard when you are in the day-to-day to see like what's kind of right in front of your face. Where else do you see leaders or owners getting stuck? Like, where are they getting stuck?
I I think that would be a fun conversation to take kind of your world and sort of the world. Because if you think about the journey, it's across, like, the sales funnel is the first part of it, right? A customer learns about you, they consider maybe joining or buying or subscribing, whatever it is, and then they join. And so that moment of when they join is super critical. It's like they're really in, they're committed. What do you do after that? And I think I've noticed that so much of the emphasis is let's get more sales, let's track revenue, let's do this, but less about, okay, great, now that they're in it, how are we being thoughtful and strategic and careful and personalized about staying in touch with everybody, and not even to upsell, just to keep that trust and engagement going. And I feel like when I ask teams, and sometimes at very large enterprises and, you know, mid-size, is, do you know what your retention metrics are? And maybe one person in a room of 20 knows. Do you know if you have loyalty? Like NPS, Net Promoter Score, is a common one, right, for loyalty.
Yeah,
Do you know if you have, you know, what your NPS score is? And maybe two people would be like, well, I think last month it was reported at 15 or whatever. And so I noticed that not always is like that sales funnel connected to everything else once you get that, acquire that customer or client or patient, right? But then also very few people in the organization are given access to that kind of data. And I don't understand why. And so it's kind of fun to have those conversations. Like, is that hurting anything? You don't have to give everything, but shouldn't we all know if we're retaining customers and what we could be doing more? Shouldn't we all know if we have loyalty? And I mean, there are plenty of other metrics, right, from every stage.
Yeah.
But just as an example, I think it's the disconnect across and then sharing of information so people know what to do with it.
Yeah, I think that's a great example, like Net Promoter Score. Why wouldn't you be sharing that across the organization?
That's right.
And I guess we can sit here and say that's so obvious.
Of course. Profile in your CRM, but not everybody has to like that, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, how are you seeing it? Obviously, silo, and then people aren't really communicating. Is it affecting like the marketing team's effectiveness, for example? And how is it affecting that?
Yeah, yeah. In that lens, you know, I have had worked with quite a few marketing teams, and sometimes they own CX formally or informally. They own that customer experience, which translates into the employee experience too. But they're not always, I guess there are a couple different answers, but they're not always given access to make changes throughout those other stages or those other functions. So if we say we want to sell white glove and we're going to talk about it because we believe this is who we are, if the delivery is not consistent like that later, you know, that's a challenge. And then who does that come back down on? Sometimes that might come back down on the marketing organization or the marketing department who was selling what, you know, advertising, sharing, storytelling, you know, putting campaigns out there that are meant to highlight the successes, and then we find friction later because it's not consistent or teams aren't open to it yet.
Yeah. I think it's, you know, when I do think about marketing and sales specifically, is a very common, we work in silos, we're not talking to each other. And let's face it, sales is usually much more connected and in front of the customer. And then if you're not getting that feedback and data, marketing's over here saying this one thing, but sales is getting a feedback that it's no, that's not their problem. It's this, but it's not getting, communicated across.
It's true. And then there are workflows that are built because I firmly believe everyone wants to do their job very well and they want to see their company succeed regardless of their role. So it's never that. But recently it was a pretty large organization adjusting their approach to sales and marketing, and the marketing flow, like we mapped it out touch point by touch point. The marketing flow had automation. It was pretty well structured. They get back into an engine to get newsletters and other things. Like it was pretty kind of linear and thought out from those different time markers. And then you translate that to, for example, like in this case, like a third party recruiter who's doing something different from marketing, but you kind of want that to feel similar as you're talking to potential customers, clients, whoever you're bringing on. And the amount of differences were remarkable. So it's kind of like who else is talking to the customer and what else might they be doing, saying, promising, trying to deliver on. And so I feel like it's a little bit of, both things, right? We're going to keep setting something up to try to get organization and structure. And anyhow, yes, definitely what you said. I agree with, I see it, right?
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
well, so I guess if a leader wants to stop guessing and they really want to implement this listening architecture,
Mm-hmm.
obviously working with you, but what does that look like?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, yes, it's great to bring in somebody who's affiliated with or certified with a customer experience professional association, the CXPA, yes. But that's where I say, like, I believe that this work, it's approachable to say, let's just pressure test. Again, what are we saying that we're going to deliver to our customers? What is that? You don't even have to call it a brand promise, but what is that? What's our North Star? What's the thing that we're all supposed to be, marching towards? Is that in our strategic plan? So even just that pressure test. And then similarly, let me just sit in my customer's shoes for a minute and say, what might they be experiencing when they learn about us, decide to join, stick around, and hopefully refer us? Like, even starting there is something. But if you go a step further and you start to think, how can I make a change or boost my maturity in this space and make sure employees know what to do, that's when the kinds of facilitated exercises like journey mapping become really important. And I think that has some like misnomers about what it is, right? It's not only for
Yeah.
product, although that's useful. It's not meant to be a thing that we stick up on a wall after a day together. It's meant to be iterative. It's meant to help people get
Yeah.
aligned. And it's meant to highlight how we measure both the, that customer experience, employee experience, and how we're doing through each of them. So
Yeah.
that facilitated exercise, it surfaces so many points of friction, so many ideas, and then that turns into, oh, right, we knew that these were pain points, but now we know where they live in the journey and we know who owns this, so then we can work on it, hopefully together, but we can work on it, whatever that is. It could be like, this form is really clunky and it takes so long to fill out, right? Things like that. It could be we're not reporting enough together within our teams. We need to change that. It could be we don't have good communication to our customer. I mean, there's so many things. Like, on average,
Yeah.
I see about 80 opportunities that come out during journey mapping. And then from there,
Wow.
yeah, it's a lot. I think the minimum I saw was 47, and that was through like a pretty mature organization who was like revisiting and refining as they put some things in place. But once you have that list, that opportunity list, I have a client of mine who believes very much in this work, says, like, that's what I need, that's the goal, now we know what to go do. Because they're they're categorized by that journey stage. They have an owner and they've been prioritized. So it's like if you've seen like effort and impact kind of quadrant,
Yeah.
you can be like,
Yeah.
great, now I know what to do first, and I can revisit these things later. It's sort of quick to action when you have somebody coming in and facilitating and getting you to that place. So you'll know what to go do.
Yeah, I love it. Uh, well, now this has been fun. I've really enjoyed getting to know you. I think that you are in a unique niche, and I love the listening architecture and trying to fill that gap, because it is probably, if you really think about it, one of the number one reasons teams struggle and departments struggle, or even a small team of two struggle. It's communication. It's always about communication. Yeah.
It
So,
absolutely is. And then the more you can kind of get off of our plates so that we can focus and do more communicating, given the work that you do, right? That's a lot of what comes out of it. I think it helps us all start to be a little bit more deliberate about what we're trying to do
yeah.
together, right?
Yeah. 100%. Well, thank you so much, Natalie. If somebody did want to get a hold of you, learn more about how they could work with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Of course, yeah. The website is thecrescentconsultancy.com. My email is on there. They can schedule on there. I'm completely available there and on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. Well, we'll find you there.
Yeah. Well,
Thanks, Natalie, for your time.
thanks so much for having me.